Welcome back, everybody, to the Star Wars podcast, where we talk all things Marvel, Star Wars, and everything in between. Please take a moment to check our show notes to find our social media, merch, and more. Today, we are recapping the entire season of Echo. First season? I don't know. I don't think. It's probably one season. But yeah, full spoilers. So if you haven't seen that thing in its entirety, I would get out of here. And I'm joined by my fellow Echo, Tommy. I don't know. Didn't plan an intro.
Michael, it's okay. You know, we can discuss what to do for the intro over some Sunday family dinner. I know it's Friday, but I figured we could get together. You still love those cookies
Yeah, absolutely.
that we had one time. Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. Tommy, before we even talk Marvel stuff, how are you? It's been a minute since I know we've just, we did our big Avengers Tower podcast. And but other than that, we haven't really gotten to talk together like this in a bit.
No, we had the Starkies, great success there with those awards, and then yeah, we had the Towers podcast. But I'm good. I'm it's a new year, new projects, just here and there, everywhere, and got some great Marvel content or content from this, and then I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I wanted to plug again. Avengers Towers podcast was great, but you mentioned Starkies. Go listen to that, guys. Is that appropriate to plug our own podcast to get people off this current podcast to go listen to another one of our podcasts? Starkies is good. I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah, because maybe someone skipped it because they're like, "Oh, maybe a new listener was like, oh, what's the Starkies? This is weird." And
they're like, "Oh, but Marvel Spotlight."
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, but I love Echo. Let me jump on this podcast."
Yeah.
Well, go backwards. That's us recapping all the shows of the last year and giving out our awards if you didn't know what the Starkies are.
Predictions, all that. Tommy, here we are. We've got a new show here. Echo, what did you think?
So going in, I probably had the lowest. I just was like, okay, this is a show. I think we all. I think you were probably one of the highest I know who was high on Echo, the character from Hawkeye. And for me, I was kind of like, I'm interested to see what they have going. I thought it was good. I thought it was fine. I think for me going into the show and watching it, I was definitely still wanting to press play on the next episode, especially around the beginning to the middle. I think the final episode lost me a little bit, and we can talk about that. But I think overall I enjoyed the down-to-earthness of her dealing with her family. And what I liked about the show is the complexness of man, there's a lot of ways you can look at what happened to Maya and her grandmother's decisions, her dad's decisions. All that stuff was really captivating to me because I don't think there was it wasn't black and white. It was very I see there's a points on a lot of these people's sides.
Yeah, first and foremost, agree with you about the finale. We'll get there. Unfortunately, I felt much like these Marvel shows, they just can't wrap it up. But it didn't work for me. I will say there was a lot I was excited about. I love Echo as a character, really excited about that. We had Kingpin, Daredevil, there was a lot. It was a TVMA, right? Which is kind of funny in hindsight because I don't know how MA really what if you watch the trailers, they got the trailer voice guy is viewer discretion is advised, and I'm like, my kid could watch this, it wouldn't bother. It's maybe a little bit of blood, but not much more than, I don't know.
For Marvel though, that's like holding hands, when you're in middle school and you're holding hands for the first time. That's Marvel's whoa, we're doing a lot of violence with this gunshots.
This was the school dance of the MCU. But yeah, I will say, the things that I was excited for, they delivered on a little bit each time. Again, I thought they did the Echo character pretty well, maybe not as well as I wanted. Daredevil was there, not as much as I wanted Daredevil to be there. Kingpin was there. Actually, I think Kingpin might be my favorite part of the show, but we can get to that too.
Yeah, we'll get to it. But I've been a big Kingpin fan, and I was very excited. I think the only thing I wanted more battles with him. I felt and we'll get into the finale of it all, I felt they really missed the combat side of Kingpin and this idea of this, he's not the worst fighter. If you know Kingpin, he's pretty good at that. So probably the only.
I felt coming into this, we had, in my opinion, two versions of Kingpin. We had the Netflix Kingpin, and we had the one we saw in Hawkeye, which I felt was a little different in that I felt they didn't really dive into they didn't humanize Kingpin and Hawkeye, right? They showed him more as a brooding force, and you did see him in a bit more action there. I felt like this was kind of a return to form for Kingpin, where like they very much humanized him.
Well, and I think that's to a point. If anything, this show is probably they don't know if everyone's going to have watched Netflix Daredevil. And obviously, we know there's another Daredevil show. This felt like a reintroduction of like, hey, there's certain things we want you to know going into Daredevil about Kingpin, especially hey, we need you to know his dad beat up his mom. Like, we need you to know that information. And a lot of that stuff I feel like was done on purpose so that going into the new Daredevil show, Kingpin's established. We already know who he is. Even if you didn't watch Netflix, we don't need to relay. And Echo, to a degree, I felt that with a lot of things. It felt like it was connecting some of that Netflix-ness. There was a lot of like, hey, let's reintroduce you to some of this stuff in case you didn't watch these other programs.
Yeah. And again, I felt like every time, they would give me a little bit of what I want, and then I'm just like, it's not exactly like, okay, so there was the moment, we're jumping way ahead at this point. We'll be all over the place. Welcome to Star Wars, everybody. But there's a moment where he presents the hammer that he killed his father with, which is part of the Netflix show. But it's not the same hammer. It's a different style of hammer. Like they didn't even get the hammer. Like the in the Netflix show, it was like the hammer that it's got the head and it's got the thing that you can pull the nails out. It's your standard hammer. This hammer was different.
Yeah, this was like a little tinkery hammer.
Is it chisel hammer? I don't know.
Is this like I guess, and maybe I haven't done enough research on this with the Netflix, is that canon, or are they like those characters are canon, but so maybe this is like variation, Fisk, where it's like the story's slightly different, the hammer changed in the two different dimension in the universes. I don't know, but yeah,
I realize I'm being nitpicky with the hammer, but it's a metaphor for how a lot of things went.
Yeah, it's Echo, I think, will walk away being like better than we expected, but still not like it's like getting a cake and it may not be the cake you expected, but you're like, it's still cake. Like it's still, I'll take this over a lot of these shows. And I think one of the biggest issues that with this show it reminded me of Winter Soldier at times, where they tried to establish this entire dynamic in 5 episodes. They try to show you, like in Winter Soldier, they try to show you this family, and now this family and you have to care about this family. And it's a really hard task, I think, to do. I think Echo did it a lot better than Winter Soldier in establishing the core family, but it is a lot when you're trying to create in 5 episodes, create a dynamic, create a story, and end it all in that amount of time.
Yeah, no, well said. I want to talk about some things that I really did like about this show, and for me, I thought they delivered. I don't know how much gore we needed. It definitely didn't give us that, but I will say I thought the action was really good. I thought the fight between Echo and Daredevil, and it was kind of disappointing we didn't get more Daredevil, because that was like one of my favorite parts of the show. Like the fight scenes were really awesome, really well choreographed. I don't know who they brought in to help with that stuff, but it feels different. It feels like they put way more thought into it than even like, the Marvels, for example, where they're just like, they just shoot things out of their hands, and it's not stylized, it doesn't seem like there's any thought put into it. It's just like, okay, here's the action scene, let's just go through the motions. This felt like there was like smart choices being made, and people felt powerful. And I don't know, I think that's another highlight of the show for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they also, on top of that, I think they used the sound or lack of sound in a lot of these fights in a really interesting way that helped build out that character, Maya, and what she has to experience. And in general, I think we'll talk about it. It's like, I think they did a well job of, a lot of this is touchy subjects with Echo, like obviously all of her stuff with her culture, and the stuff there with hearing and all that. I think they did a really good job of, like, it felt like they put care into that stuff from someone who isn't super familiar with all of it, but it does feel like they put the care, took the time to make sure they got it done correctly and right.
Yeah, no, I we'll dive into some like the flashback stuff, which was very interesting to me. I did want to point out an interesting thing for me where like they told a lot about the characters. Where, for instance, Kingpin they show that he never took the time to learn ASL. And I felt like you could see it with the other people in their life. Everyone else is fluent in ASL, right? Her real family, the people that really care about her, they can speak to her. Kingpin never decided to make that leap into understanding Maya in the way that maybe he should have, as like an uncle or father figure or whatever. What annoyed me was like I was able to pick up on that, right? Like I read that about his character. I was like, this, yeah, like I get it. I understand the disconnect. And then they just say it. Maya's like, you never took time to learn ASL. It's like, okay, like we knew this already, and I think that's maybe just the problem with some of the Marvel writing in general. But it's kind of like on the nose, and a lot of things can be implied without just directly saying it.
It shows a lack of trust because I was actually going to mention this exact thing because I too picked up on it right when in that car. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. He never learned that. And it's like, we don't need anymore. I don't need it to be a storyline. I like that because it tells me about their characteristics, tells me about Kingpin. He will tell you he cares, but he doesn't show how he cared for. And like, I want to dive deep into like the Fisk relationship and like Fisk in general, just always trying to cling on to people and all, loses them because he keeps them too close. I think it's so interesting, but yeah, it didn't need to be said. And I think that's them just not trusting their audience to pick up on that. And it's a hard thing. You're trying to make a show and it's like, that's such a big pivotal thing. You want them to notice that, but it's like, let them, it's worth more. It's like earn that. And you earned it, but then you took it away. You didn't trust yourself and you took away how cool that moment would have been. It still, like I said, was a good character moment, but
yeah. I mean, he invented new technology. Like, the meme that's like, blank or draw 25 cards in Uno, and it's like the guy holding the deck of cards. That's like Wilson Fisk is like, learn ASL or draw 25 cards. Like, he invented new technologies, so he didn't have to communicate with it that way.
He heard the advice of like, don't reinvent the wheel, and he's like, I'm just gonna create something better than the wheel. I'm gonna walk around this. I'm not even gonna look at your wheel. I'm gonna find another way to do this.
Yeah, he was supposed to build a wheel. He built an engine. It's like, come on.
It's like, I guess that worked. You did it, yeah. I guess.
Is that a characteristic of Kingpin? Is he like a tech savvy guy? Like, is he Elon Musk? I don't think so.
He has money. I think when you have money, you can get anything done. So I don't know if it's like, I think it's more shows that he has the money and he's willing to flaunt it. He's willing to buy, we see it again. We talked about the cookies, like clearly he is not afraid to use money to get the people close to him. And that's the trade that it still is common in today.
Yeah. And the poor interpreter. That was really, again, I think it said a lot about his character, where again, he just has money to hire people and abuse them and then toss them out when he doesn't need them. And like, I do appreciate there were little things like that throughout the entire show that told us what type of person he was, rather than saying it directly, which you don't always have to say it directly.
Yeah, no, I really think they handled Kingpin so well. And like, it was dark. Like, I think they found a good balance of like, when he came back in Hawkeye, he was like dark, but it's still, he didn't have this menacing. I felt him be more menacing. It felt more like the Daredevil from the Netflix. Obviously not to the extreme, because that character was terrifying. If you go back and rewatch that series, Kingpin is scary. The way they set him up, the way that it's like a couple episodes in, you just get hints of him. But like, I felt a fear from him because of how warmly he's being, but how cold he really is. And when he doesn't see you as family, he does not care about you. No, we'll get into it, but I think Fisk was handled really well. But the problem is I wanted more. And I think that's like Maya's stuff with the ancestry was very interesting. I want more. I think one of the hardest things for me was her powers. And this is going into the final episode a little. It felt so second note to everything else. And I'm like, I almost feel like they needed to cut one thing, like cut the powers, just focus on the family aspect and focus on this William Fisk versus her actual family and reconnecting that. And because it felt at times like, oh yeah, she has powers. We're not going to really, it has something to do with her ancestry. We'll explain. And I think they did well of like giving each of the ancestors a spotlight, but I do think that like, her connecting the powers and she hands it off to, we'll talk about it with the finale, but like handing it off to her.
I mean, we could talk about it now, because yeah. I have a lot to like. First and foremost, I think this is my biggest problem with the powers is they're lame. I think her powers are lame. The way she defeated Kingpin was dumb. Like, I don't like it. There's so much build up to this final confrontation, and like she puts a hex on his head and like makes him remember things. I don't know. I'm just like, it's not exciting to me.
And this is where I was saying earlier, I think 100% the only reason they did that was because they wanted you to see the memory so that you knew that about William Fisk or Wilson Fisk, so that you knew that going into the next show. They needed to show that moment because it's something that is a huge thing for his character, and they don't want to have to do it later. So why not just do it in this? That's the only thing that makes sense, because I'm with you. They didn't show this power enough. I'm still confused what the power was, to be honest. It healed people, but then it also showed memory. Like I'm the bird was healed, but like, you know, I think that's the problem. They need to spend more time with it, because it was just a very confusing, and it felt very much like what's it called when you just at the end of the day something comes in to just save the day, and it's that's how it felt with the finale. It's like, all right, we didn't have this power for the other fights, the ice rink fight and all that stuff, but here it is to get Fisk, because we can't really kill him because we're going to be using them. So this is a good way to keep him around.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the many things that the MCU does, and the powers are as strong or what they need to be when they need to be in any given moment.
One, it didn't even like. It's not like he had a change of heart because of it. It just ate up time. That's essentially what they won, because they just ate up time until police showed up. So I think that's, I really liked the show, but the finale was very much one of those of like, it feels like we just phoned it in. That we were like, we need to just wrap this up. And wasn't there talks originally? Was it always supposed to be 5 episodes? Because I wonder if that's part of it. If it was supposed to be longer, and they had to cut some things, and they were like, all right, this is what we got to do for the 5th episode.
And that seems to be their excuse. Typically, these MCU, I feel like that's what they said with WandaVision. They're like, "Oh, we cut an episode. It was 7 instead of 8. Was it supposed to be 6 instead of 5?" I'm not sure technically, but I don't know. It's I don't accept that excuse anymore. I guess is like, I feel like you can, you can do a movie in 2.5 hours. So why can't you do? This was basically like a 3-hour movie. Why can't you do it like that?
And you didn't. The thing that this show benefited from, we touched on it briefly, like the Marvel spotlight of it all, right? Like it's about focusing in on a very grounded story. That's what they're trying to do with this new series. So you don't have to connect to the bigger MCU. You don't have to set things up. Obviously, I think they're setting up a little bit Fisk, but you don't have to. It didn't feel like they utilized the extra material. Again, it felt like they were almost doing too much, where it's like, if we cut a couple things down, we could build out some of things. Like, we're supposed to care about Bonnie and their relationship. Bonnie and her probably spent like 2 minutes in the whole series together. Like, I think those are some of our gripes of, like, again, I'll take this over most of what Marvel has been putting out, though. As much as we're criticizing because we see the potential for this to be this incredible show. Because I liked their grounding. I loved the family stuff. I thought it was really dynamic when we got it, but it's just not enough of it.
I'm gonna say this. I feel dumb saying it. I feel dumb that this happened to me, but I suspect I'm not the only one who thought this. What was the guy's name? Not Bonnie, the guy with the beard.
Henry?
Yes.
Oh, Biscuit.
Biscuit, yes.
I love Biscuit. I wanted more Biscuit.
Yeah. So when we first meet Biscuit, right, like she goes back to the house where Bonnie was, and you suspect that she's going to go meet up with Bonnie, and then this Biscuit guy came out, and I was being 2024 woke. I was like, okay, Bonnie's a man now. I like, who is Biscuit? Like, and this guy came out of nowhere.
Just throw him in the flashback in the beginning when they're kids. Just have even just a line like, "Oh, Biscuit's out, doing this." It's like, "Oh, he's a relative. He's one of the cousins. It's fine." But we only know Bonnie. Then we don't like. We briefly get a flash of her at a fire, at the fire department. But it's like, who's Biscuit? What do you?
I was like, this is Bonnie. The bees and everything. I was like,
yeah,
I'm supposed to think this is Bonnie now, and that's fine.
And the dog's name would also start with a B too.
What's it with the bees?
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, let's I guess dive into like the family of it all right now with Biscuit. I think it definitely took me a bit to figure out the dynamic of the family. I was like, Henry must be her dad's brother, but also they were calling like he was Uncle Henry for all of them. So it's like it's and I think the thing I like about this, it is small town. I know small town. I get that vibe of like your daughter's husband's family becomes part of your family because it is that small town, especially in this community. What did you think? What worked for you with the family? What didn't? Any highlight? Like, who was your star of the family?
Okay, so here's the other thing. I watched all this very quickly after it came out. It's not as fresh on. I don't remember anyone's name. Let's just get that up front, okay? The older man that ran the antique shop, I think he might have been one of the stars for me. I feel like he filled
Scully. I think Scully was his. Yeah.
I feel like he filled a very cliche role of like I'm the man with crafty skills that can build your super thing, right? And he ends up building her a leg, and it's a cool leg. And I don't know. I thought he was like a warm presence.
He was great. But again, it took me for a second. I was like, is he their grandpa? Because he was in the flashbacks. But then they were like, nope, he just probably was a boyfriend at some point. I think that's what's implied was a boyfriend that didn't last. I like a different dynamic. We don't always need the same family dynamic. I do like the idea that he's a boyfriend that still cares about the family, but is an ex-boyfriend now. So that was fun. But again, like explain some stuff. This is where we're saying don't explain the Fisk not sign language, but explain this. Give us a rundown of like, oh, these are who these people are.
I'm curious though, this could very well be a thing that's happening subconsciously, but are we more open to Fisk because we know Fisk and we have a harder time connecting with these new people? Like, I do, at least I guess I could just speak for myself. I do feel like there is an element of that where, like, I do feel more comfortable with the characters that I'm very familiar with.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the Winter Soldier problem. It's what I was saying there. It was how are we supposed to care about his sister because we're just finding out about them now. And it is harder. I think we've had more time with Fisk, at least with us. Like, we've been, and part of it is like, I've been clamoring for this character and I'll stand by this. I think this is one of the best casting they've ever done. He is Fisk, like to a T. I will never see anyone other than him play Kingpin. And because he has such a warmth, but also such a hardness. It's perfect. And I think that is part of it. Like, we love that character. And so like when he comes on, we're like, man, I want more of you. But I don't think that's I don't think that goes against the family. I thought the family worked for me. For me personally, I thought the dynamic worked. Like I said, I think there was complex things they were doing with like, man, the grandma probably should have checked in on them. And even like Maya, like not contacting Bonnie. Like, I see all the reasons and it worked. And that stuff really did captivate me. But then it'd be like, okay, now we got to also talk about the superpowers. And then Fisk is showing up and this and that. And it's like, and then, of course, we do the drawn out thing of like, we can't connect the family until the last episode. So Bonnie has to stay as MIA as possible because you can't. That probably would be wrapped up pretty quickly because it just seems like it needed a conversation.
Yeah. No, it does seem like, especially, harping on the finale again, but it does, MCU has like their formula, right? And you put this character in this role and this thing happens and everything comes together at the finale. Like, every single show is the same structure wise. I do want to get into something that was like probably one of the more different elements of all of this, which was some of like the flashbacks, learning about her ancestry. And I don't know if I found it particularly exciting. I don't know if it told me any more about Maya, but I thought it was like cool concepts, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was like what is good is like you're putting a spotlight on this culture and you're giving time to the Choctaw Nation. And like, again, like there was definitely details. I saw something earlier where like the woodpecker is like a big deal in that group. And like, and the way they use it in the show, I thought was good. I think there's a lot they were trying to do artistically that I really liked. And it did, as much as we say the cookie cutter formula, I felt there was a heart and there was a theme and there was things they really wanted to push in this show. And it, like we say from the beginning, it felt like there was care in that stuff. And that I really appreciate. And me saying like, oh, the superpowers were weird and all that stuff is not me negating any of that. I think the whole thing with the power, as much as the finale was bad, I love the power stuff. I love showing that. I love like getting into it because it's like, that is part of, even if you're not that's part of our culture. Like it is, it's part of America. It's part of, what has happened, obviously. So I appreciate all that stuff. I thought the flashbacks were really cool. I think the way they did them were really cool. I just wanted that like one more connective tissue.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Okay, well, where else do we go from here? I'm gonna talk about, actually, I guess two set pieces because I was about to say my favorite, and then I was like, wait, there's one other I really liked. I thought this show did a really good job. I mentioned the Daredevil fight; that was great. It seemed like every episode had like a set piece that was really cool. The train heist. Awesome. I thought that was so cool. Like I was on the edge of my seat, like watching Maya jump off a train onto a truck as they're oncoming a tunnel. Like this stuff was awesome. And then I was gonna mention the roller rink as well. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
The first like 3 episodes, I'm telling, like I was like hyped because like the train was fun, setting up bit again. The bits, one of my favorite like small little funny moments is when the grandma's on her run, doing posts, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I gave the truck to Biscuit," and you just see Biscuit with the bumper hanging off, and they just lock eyes, and Biscuit's trying to like. I thought that was great. It was very comical. It was a very funny moment. It got you that the walkie-talkie again. Biscuit was so good, and then they didn't do anything with him because I love the walkie-talkie where he lets slip that Maya's there with Bonnie and him just pretending ignorant. But yeah, I think the train heist was great, and the ice rink. I thought that was such a cool like moment. I loved like again, this is all I needed. I don't need the show to be this intense superhero show. I love them just being people and like Henry. Basically talking to Bonnie through sign language. I thought that was so clever. Again, like just showing the show a little bit more. I think in general, I love the I think the villain, the little like mini. I thought he was great. You know what I liked about him? He's not just a generic like yes, but the actor gave persona to that character. I can't remember his name, Vance, or I would say I don't remember his name, but he I thought he did a really good job in that role.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The roller rink, like it was. I'm gonna say this. It might sound like an insult, but it was almost gimmicky. Where like it was like basically like running through an arcade. And she's like, I'm gonna smash your head in a pinball table. Now I have skee balls, and like, it was just silly. It was fun, and like, that's all we. I don't. I'll speak for myself. That's all I really want. Give me like cool. I like superheroes that beat people up. I don't know.
Yeah. No, exactly. And again, like I also in that scene they also had Vicky as the other like kind of bad guy. And like he to me screamed like small town bad guy. Like he thinks he's the big fish in the small pond. And in the minute more comes through, like that I thought worked really well. His two coworkers. I think like 1-3, 1-4 really worked for me. There was a lot going on. I thought like they set up that stuff well. I just think I needed like once the action started, I feel like all that got dropped to the wayside. It was now focused on Fisk. It was now focused on all this other stuff that negated those like kind of levity moments that we got in the beginning.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. What do you think about? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna like dive more into like Fisk and Maya. I thought they handled that relationship. It helped honestly with Hawkeye. It helped me reevaluate his performance there and realizing like, and maybe this was said and I just didn't realize that the dad basically just died because he wanted Maya closer. And that was he wanted Maya to be close to him. And so he had to take away all other, and it's a toxic trait, had to take away all other lifelines she had. And in his mind, that's love. And I think that's so fascinating. The character Wilson Fisk is why I adore him is because he had trauma and handled it in the completely wrong way, but feels justified in his wrong way because like we saw with, I don't know. I can say too much about Wilson Fisk. I think they did a really good job of like setting up that dynamic. I think also setting up Maya and like her coldness, and then also like the stuff with her mom really worked with that. But like when she's sitting there with the ice cream man and just watching and like kicks him, I'm like, oh shoot, like we're getting dark.
They actually like, and this is something that the MCU struggles with, I think, where Maya is an anti-hero, right? Like I feel like so often in these shows, it's somebody that's all good versus somebody that's all bad. And we see a lot of gray in Maya, and we see why there's a lot of gray on Maya. Like, obviously, growing up under Wilson Fisk, there's going to be some of that stuff, but they really put a pin on it like really well, I thought, by like that ice cream scene like you mentioned, and then like showing even her growing up and like her first job working like under Fisk, right, like going to like rough some people up, right, like she wasn't raised to be a hero. And I don't know, you know, like most things, I feel like they could have done a little bit better at like making her the anti-hero, but you know, they're giving us stuff that I asked for, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it is like now she's not. I think she's trying to redeem herself, and I think like taking on and representing her family and all that stuff. I think that's like her now stepping away from the Fisk influence and now trying to take this other take this on.
Yeah, no. Um, Tommy, did you catch the post-credit scene?
I did. It sounds like we have a new potentially. We kind of have an idea where it's going to go in the new Daredevil. This is done with the mean streets. He's going up to the big times.
Going up to the big tower.
You know what would be a great campaign headquarters for
I've
Mayor
got just the
Fisk.
place. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying. I think it's interesting. I love that he is being set up to be a bigger force in the MCU as a whole. This is put him up there with Thanos for me. Like I would love to see him like as the big bad. You know, obviously we kind of lost Kang, I guess, but this is a good replacement for me. I don't know how he becomes like a galactic level threat like the other two big bads were, but I don't know. I like Kingpin in that role.
I've been fighting this fight for a bit now. I think Kingpin would be a great low level. Bring us back home. Bring it back. Lower the stakes, but make like Kingpin still terrifying. I don't need a giant alien coming from the sky every single time. This is more real for me. You know, in this day and age, people diving into politics after living other lives and coming in is very scary.
You just say Trump.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we're
scary. So like, I that's enough for me. And so like, I think having more Fisk is going to be great. I agree. Just make him the big bad. Have this be like the storyline. I think I messaged you of like, just imagine like Tom Holland Spider-Man quipping with Fisk. Like that's why Fisk. There's so many cool stories and so many superheroes see Fisk as their ops. Like a lot of them in New York do not like Fisk, and usually like they're like considered his big bads. You know, obviously Daredevil's the one we know most, but like Spider-Man, hugely against Fisk, and has been for a bit. So I'm pro more Fisk on my screen.
You know, Tommy, I'm not great with the comic books, right? My lore, it's not the best. I was just curious. You know, I'm going to look at what was the first comic appearance of Kingpin. It was 1967 in the Amazing Spider-Man. So I guess he was a Spider-Man villain first. I mean, you know, I think you know somebody like me that you know grows up with the MCU, grows up with the Netflix shows, like I think of him as a Daredevil villain. But you're right, he's a Spider-Man villain. So
they all these villains. The TV shows like to tell you that these villains are like they only date one superhero, but like I believe Electro first showed up in Daredevil,
yeah,
and he's known as the Spider-Man villain. So it's like they love to double dip.
I guess they're like the two New York heroes, right? And they share.
I guess it makes more sense, right? Like it's not like the villains are like, oh wait, or it's not like the heroes would be like, oh, Kingpin's doing the crime this time. Sorry, not my job. Better call Daredevil.
I think that's what Captain Marvel does. Like, oh, you know, Ultron. I'm gonna stay up here. That's not my.
That was just space. I am strictly only involved.
I've got other planets to help. I can't be involved with an Iron Man villain.
Even though I went back and forth to like multiple planets, it didn't take her that long.
She had time to get married on the singing planet. Like, she wasn't busy.
Is that what this show needed? Did it need a singing planet?
I guess. Yeah. At least a karaoke night at the skating rink. I think we could have done that.
That's the thing. I would have taken like, I would take a show like a One Tree Hill, a Dawson's Creek version of this. I love the town. I love the. I would just take like a 22 series season of just like Maya growing up in her town. Like, I'm in.
Yeah. Just speaking music, I thought this might be one of the best soundtracks I've heard, at least from the Marvel shows, for sure. I mean, I'm a big Yeah Yeah Yeahs guy. There's a lot of that, including the opening credits. Down in the Valley to Pray, one of my one of my favorite songs, and at least cinema. Yeah, I was really enjoying the music in the show for sure.
We don't talk about our takes, and that's so funny because I had the same thought. I was like, this music is. I'm like, am I misremembering the other shows? I don't remember them having like fun soundtracks like this.
Yeah, it's kind of like you are a Walking Dead fan, right? They The Walking Dead was notorious for like picking like a song that has like 3 listens on Spotify because they didn't have to pay that much. And it's like, this is like, I don't know, trying to make it feel like a bigger thing than it is. No, they went all out. They paid the money for the song. So
yeah. No, I think overall the show did a really good job in a lot of departments. I think there's like, if anything, I think it's just the lack of episode is really like, and just a better, if the finale I think nailed it, we'd be like this. If the finale actually had a fight scene and you just have her beat Fisk, I'm good. And I think like this works. And I think we walk away being like, Echo, great, focused in story about Maya, and we may never see Maya again. I don't know what the future is for this character, but I now feel like at least that character has been fully explored more than she was in Hawkeye.
Yeah, for sure. Tommy, what else? What else can we touch on?
Trying to think. The ice rink, the train thing, the ancestors. I feel like we hit the big points. Did you like when she poured the wine? The dinner scene. First of all, very tension filling scene, and I thought they did such a good job of like. I didn't know where that was going to go, and the cojones on Fisk to just show up and be like, yeah, we're just gonna have this dinner. I trust that you're not gonna kill me in this moment. Yeah. I thought the dinner was another really fun, interesting scene of showing how, again, his version of caring too, like his version of like, see how much I'm bringing your favorite things. I'm coming to you. I'm giving you another chance.
Yeah, no, and again, I think the core of this show for me was the like Lee mentioned, was the Kingpin and Maya connection. I think something they did really well. So I'm walking away. Tommy, season 2, would you sign off?
Is there more story here? I think again, if you're gonna make it a One Tree Hill, Maya hanging out, love it. I think I could see more of take this character now that we have her backstory. Bring her into Daredevil. Have her be part of, I think she could. I would love to see them create a grittier series like they did with the Netflix. Just do that again, like New York focused stories. Have this cast like Maya come in, Daredevil. Just redo Defenders, because I think you have some like really.
That's a hot take, I think.
do it better.
Yeah,
I loved. I don't know if I've talked about this on here. I love the Netflix Marvel series. I thought, other than one that everyone knows was terrible, I thought the rest of them, other than Iron Fist, was amazing. Great casting.
I don't even think I finished Daredevil. I watched a little bit of Punisher. Other than that, I'm not exposed, really. I mean,
no, it's good. Jessica Jones was so good. I really liked Jessica Jones. I thought that character, and I read these comics, so like I was a huge fan of Luke Cage. I was a huge fan, and I felt these actors perfectly were them. In my mind, there will be no other Luke Cage than that guy. There will be no other Jessica Jones. So I thought it was a good series. I think towards the end it got a little wonky, but I thought pretty good. Pretty good.
Let me throw a question out there. I don't know if you know this. I'll just spoil you, I guess. I think it's been confirmed that Punisher will come in eventually in some capacity with John Bernthal. Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, if you had to pick one of them. Or maybe, your other buddy. What's his name? Iron Fist?
No, leave him out. If they redo, the casting was just, it was a mess there. Man, that's so tough because I really do love both of them. Jessica Jones had such a fascinating story, and they did it so, again, I don't want to spoil any of it because I really think if you're gonna watch one, Jessica Jones is such a intricate, complex story that I thought
Well,
they
who is
handled
this
well.
woman? What is her? I don't know anything
She's
about
super
Jessica.
strength, but she's a
Really?
private eye. She's a private eye that does. She gets down and gritty, and you know,
She's got iron fists.
Iron Fist. No, and there's a her backstory specifically in the Netflix series is really interesting with the villain. The villain and her are very familiar in a not great way, and it's played by David Tennant is the villain. Great casting there as the villain. I can't believe you have never watched Jessica Jones. That's your homework assignment. Watch Jessica Jones.
You know what's funny is like I feel like at the time the narrative was, you know, people really liked Daredevil, and then everything else was kind of like somebody like, yes, you know, it's all right. I feel like now, and it might be like the Star Wars prequels in a way, where like everyone hated the prequels, and then the sequels come out, and we're like, we love the prequels now. I think it might be a situation where people weren't super hyped about the Netflix shows until the MCU shows started coming out, and they're like, these things,
yeah. Well, and another issue is it felt like they got too big for what Netflix was able to handle with Marvel. It's like Marvel Avengers was the focus, and then they were trying to do this Defender series, but it did not have the energy put in. So it's like it came out with gas, and then it started to falter towards the end. They're like, "Do we really have to do this Defenders show? Like, does anyone care about this anymore?" And it really felt like the energy and the excitement for that series was very pushed off the side, but. Yeah, I think it's also, you know, I'll take Jessica. It got an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Hey, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, it's pretty 37 for Iron, 37 for Iron Fist. I think it's a little generous, to be honest.
That was very kind with that one, huh? Tommy, you know, coming to the end here, I gotta ask because we haven't talked in a minute. I don't believe that you don't have a recommendation to leave the audience with. There's certainly something that you watched.
It's been a lot of One Piece, guys. I'm caught up on One Piece, by the way. If you ever followed that journey, I watched 1,000 and something episodes. It's ridiculous. But what have I been watching? This isn't out yet, but I'm like I hate even saying this on a podcast because I'm becoming too hopeful, and I knew this was going to happen, and I'm scared, Michael, because I don't know if you saw, and you know me, I don't usually watch trailers, but I happened to watch a specific trailer that dropped of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, I didn't even watch that. Then again, I'm not like the biggest Avatar fan. I didn't watch the other show.
Have you watched One Piece yet? The live action? Michael.
Tommy.
It's still my recommendation for you. The live action. So everyone, universally, I haven't seen like one person being like, this is bad. Like everyone I know, both YouTubers that I watch are always like going in very defeatist, and then they watch it and they're like, man, I love the heart of this show. You'll walk away feeling so inspired.
Okay. See, my thing is, I've been the reason I'm not super entrenched in TV shows right now is because it's Oscar season, baby. I've been catching up on a bunch of movies, so I have like 5 recommendations.
See, I'm the opposite. I don't think I've watched a movie in a minute.
Can I recommend some to you?
Yes, but yeah, go watch the Avatar show. I think it's going to be good. Well, you know, I'm still nervous, but it looked better than I expected.
You know, I think I'll check it out, and maybe we can podcast about it. No problem.
And the One Piece live action, Tommy, I'll watch that too. Listen, you gave up on My Hero. I lost you there.
I didn't give up. I just haven't started. Okay,
yeah,
let me throw some recommendations to you, Tommy. I'll start with one of the easiest ones. You can watch this on Amazon Prime right now. Saltburn. It actually didn't get nominated for Best Picture, which I think it was robbed. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. Saltburn's great.
Oh, Rebecca watched this without me, and I know bits. I heard it's real freaky.
Yeah, it's a freaky movie, but
freaky.
I'm trying to think of a comparison because I feel like, you know, okay, so like the Black Swan, when that came out, like people were just like, oh, there's lesbians in that movie, right? Like that was the dialogue, and it kind of overshadowed the fact that it was a really good movie too. I think Saltburn is the same thing, where there's like, oh, there's gay people doing gay things in this movie, but it's a really good movie. So
it gave me vibes of the guy who did The Lobster and like that kind of like sacred, like that kind of like, yeah.
takes me to my next recommendation. Yorgos Lanthimos, director of The Lobster, came out with a new movie. It's actually my favorite movie of the year, Poor Things, starring Emma
Oh,
Stone.
I don't think I even heard of
Willem Dafoe plays a mad scientist. It's awesome.
it. He's something of a scientist, I've heard, so that would make sense.
Of course, I just named the two horniest movies up front, which was Saltburn and Poor Things has a little of some of that in
Oh
there
my
as
gosh,
well.
Marvel's covering their ears. They can't deal with this.
This is the school dance. Leave the room for the ratings, I guess.
Leave room for Thanos.
Okay, here's a less horny one. Godzilla -1.
This
Very
I've
good.
heard. Jason, my good friend, watched this, and he could not speak highly enough about it. Said it was one of his favorite Godzilla movies.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite. Then again, I haven't seen all like the best ones. Okay, two more real quick. Anatomy of a Fall, really great movie. One I think that you'll like specifically though is The Iron Claw. Again, also kind of
I've
stuff for
heard.
some awards. I think
Yeah.
you would really like Iron Claw. So if you find yourself wandering outside, if you fall outside your front door, I know you work from home.
Ah!
You find yourself in a movie cinema park.
Well, maybe I will. No, I need to see more movies this year. I've really fallen off because I think I've just dived so deeply into the TV show streets that I'm like blinking on stuff I've watched, but I definitely have watched stuff, guys. Like, I watch things. Okay.
Last thing I want to touch on before we close out. I guess this is kind of like the news segment. We got a Bad Batch trailer. I know you're not gonna watch that, but I'm really excited for Bad Batch to come back. I can't believe I'm here, but there's some things in the trailer that like
I'm gonna come in strong on Bad Batch. I'm gonna this year, 2024.
It's the final season, so
I'm the biggest fan of Bad Batch. I didn't see the trailer. I knew it dropped, and I know there's a character. I don't know who the character is. I saw a symbol, but I don't know any. It has no context. Someone in armor, so like my mind does go to like Sabine and like some of the Mandalorian stuff, but I do not have it confirmed yet. I don't know anything.
I'll just say it's very exciting. And it's kind of controversial too, but I'm gonna leave it at that. It's exciting and controversial that this character.
Do you think I should look, or should I just wait and go into the show?
It's one of those things that I'm like, I don't know how you. For me, I know our social media feeds are probably very different. I could never avoid this because I just follow so many Star Wars accounts. I don't know how you avoid this. It seems like a very big thing.
Well, you see, my Twitter is mostly just Buffalo Bills thing because I like to see a lot of the reporters bash my favorite team, and then I get very upset. And so then they decided to show me more of it because, of course, I looked at it once, and now and now that they're out of, spoilers, Buffalo is out of the playoffs, and it's even worse because at least before it was like I could bank on the fact that maybe we can win. Now it's just people poo-pooing on my Josh Allen.
Yeah, when I was faking to be a football fan for a year, I was a big Bills fan. They were my favorite team.
They're just a fun team to root for.
Listen. They go hard, man. Like and their games are, at least last year I was like, I hate football, right? I'll just say it. I hate football. Like most of the time, I'm like, this is so boring. But you watch Buffalo Bills game, man, they're just like.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's a universal. Like, I become recently a big Jason Kelce guy. I think he's a really stand-up guy. He plays for the Eagles, obviously brother of Travis Kelce, and he was at the game. And he was. They have a podcast.
Brother of Taylor Swift's boyfriend.
Yeah. Brother, yeah, of course. And he was saying he's like I don't know what it was. I became Buffalonian. Like they just have such a vibe, and he's like taking off as he's on during the game. They showed him. It's like Taylor Swift. Forget about her in the same booth. We're focused on Jason Kelce with his shirt off, jumping out of the club windows. That's the energy we need in 2024.
He seems way more fun than Travis. He seems like
even down to earth. Oh, I can gush about him and Kylie. They're couple goals, him and his wife, and very don't care about being celebrities, which I appreciate. When people do that.
Okay, Tommy, we've officially started talking about football, so I think it is the end.
Yeah, I think this is the part you try to. Oh, what's that? I gotta go.
Yeah. Okay, well, I will close this out here. I like to remind you guys to rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify, preferably 5 stars. Also, please subscribe because we're going to be here whenever there's a Marvel and Star Wars thing, which I guess we'll be back in February for Bad Batch. I think that's next on our agenda here. So Also, we have some merch if you want to check that out in the link in the show notes. Some cool shirts and whatnot. But that is all we got for you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.